You're not 15 minutes early, you're late.
That's what my dad always made me do. Thank you very much for coming to this political forum. We are right now doing the forum for the Henderson Municipal Court judge in Department 1. There are two candidates that were set to be here. The current Municipal Court judge, Mark Stevens, and his challenger, Gary Thompson. They both said they would be here. Currently, only Judge Stevens is here. So the way that we'll do this is we will move forward, and when Mr. Thompson comes, he can start wherever we are. But if he doesn't come in the next minute, he'll miss his opportunity for an opening statement. Okay. So we will start. I'm moderator Stephen Stubbs. I'm an attorney in town. And I will say as well, I will not be making any moderator comments or questions, being that I do have potential conflict of interest. I have been before Judge Stevens in the past, and I want to disclose that. I also know Mr. Thompson, as he is an attorney in town, and so I will simply be the moderator. I will not do anything else, and I'll take myself away from that potential conflict of interest.
Our laws.
Our laws. Okay. So, out of fairness to Mr. Thompson, I'm going to call you Mr. Stevens, if that's okay, Judge Stevens, in this forum.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right.
Okay. So Mr. Stevens, you have 30 seconds to make an opening statement.
Okay. I'm just wrapping up my first 6-year term with the Henderson Municipal Court. I'm currently the chief judge for the Henderson Municipal Court. I think in my court, over the last 6 years, we've certainly made some big improvements. For example, our trial calendar now, instead of trials being set out 5-6 months, we're down to about 45 to 50 days, and I require between 45 and 50 days, just to keep cases moving along.
Thank you very much. And I don't cut you off because I don't like you, especially since I might be coming before you in the future. I cut you off to try to be fair and to obey the rules, and you can certainly respect that. So we were going to start with former Municipal Court Judge George Assad. If you could start with the question.
Thank you, Steve. And Judge Stevens was being very modest. With 30 seconds, he didn't have a chance to tell you he has a military service, Marines, I believe?
Correct.
Former Marine, and we want to thank you for your military service in the Marines. We want to thank you for being a judge and serving the community as you have, and for starting a Veterans Court, which was extremely important to the group here today. If my question is just generally, if you could go ahead and expound on what the accomplishments that you've achieved in municipal court, and some background that you didn't have a chance to expound upon.
Thank you. As you indicated, I was in the Marine Corps. I got out as a captain. I was a JAG officer, also mostly criminal defense while I was in the Marine Corps, but I also was a company commander. I had 400 Marines. It was a headquarters and service company. Great experience as well. I guess I've been a police officer in Henderson, graveyard police officer, as well as a prosecutor, and now a judge for the last 6 years. I guess the thing I'm most proud of is starting the Veterans Treatment Court. It's just so awesome to see these veterans get back on the right track. Some of whom are suffering from everything from wounds where they've gotten addicted to different drugs or alcohol, as well as PTSD and those kind of things. So it's great seeing them get back on track.
Thank you very much. Mr. Assad, are you finished?
I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish your answer if you could.
Okay, sure. One of the things we really rely on is mentors. We rely a lot on mentors that are volunteers to help some of these individuals. They're role models, just a guide, a friend, someone that cares about them, that will talk to them and help them out. Got a little story. On Thursday, we had an individual in court who his only mode of transportation was a bicycle, and he was working 2 jobs, and his roommate backed over his bicycle. I know it sounds minor, but this individual didn't have a way to get to work. He had to walk everywhere, but he wasn't complaining at all. Well, the mentor put it online, and pretty soon that bike was donated, and it was delivered earlier this weekend to him. And so now he has a bike again to get to work. And I know it sounds maybe small to a lot of us, but it's huge. It's huge to that individual. Now he can get back and forth to work and doesn't have to walk everywhere as much.
Thank you very much. Now, I would like to say that I am allowing, the same question twice. Simply, we usually can't do that because of time, but because the other person isn't here right now, that time conflict is not there. So for as long as Mr. Thompson is not here, I will allow that type of a thing. Ms. Karen Steelman.
Come back to me again.
Okay, we'll come back around. Ms. Melody Hauer.
Judge Stevens, thank you so much for attending our interview. You are currently heavily involved in the Veterans Court. However, the law at this time does not provide a provision where domestic battery can go into the Veterans Court. And as we know, some of these problems are associated with the PTSD that these young men and women are suffering, sometimes bring it back home. Would you support legislation to change the statutes as they currently stand to also include domestic violence? And if so, why or why not?
Thank you for the question. Actually, our court, it doesn't specifically say,
Right, they have to all agree.
but what we do is we inquire as to whether the victim wants them to be in the program, thinks they'd benefit from them, and realizing the case ultimately, if they complete the whole program, it's an intensive program, if they complete the whole thing, the case is ultimately dismissed and the record's sealed. So we only accept them if the victim wants them in the program, first off. And then it is the prosecutor has to stipulate to let them in the program. Fortunately, a number of cases, our prosecutor does do that. So we do have folks, because some of the domestic battery cases may only be, it might be brother and brother. The way that the crime is defined, it's pretty wide open. So it isn't always the power and control situation. It may be just an incident with PTSD where they may have reacted. And so we do allow them in as long as they stipulate. But yeah, I would.
Thank you very much. Time is up. Is that all, Ms. Howard?
Well, I just wanted to address the Clark County. I know you're not in Clark County courts. You are in the municipal court, and you have the benefit of working with all of the different types in Henderson. However, in Clark County, their courts, I mean, you have family court, and then you have district court, municipal court, and justice court. And our family court in Clark County really does not, and lawyers do not want a lot of these people to go into this treatment program because they lose money on the costs of, divorce or whatever's going on. That's the only reason why I'd like to see maybe a particular provision and maybe get Clark County's courts to the family court to judges to start addressing that. Would you agree with that?
In family court, I don't know. I've had family court judges talk to me about my program and stuff. I'm not familiar enough with family court, quite frankly, to know how they can incorporate a lot of those things in there. I know they deal with issues where, a veteran or an active duty member is serving and they delay things, child custody issues and stuff. And I know it's more complicated. Quite frankly, with municipal court, we're pretty streamlined, and I think it's a lot easier. We don't have the intermediate court, like a justice court, and for it to get up to the felony level of district court. So it's a lot easier for me to run the program, I think. And the nice part is, I guess because they're misdemeanors, not that they're not important, but it's a good level to get these folks back on track. But yeah, I think that certainly some legislation. We'll see what comes with the legislation now, or legislator.
Thank you very much. Are you done, Ms. Howard?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Darby.
Yeah, Judge. I had the privilege to interview you in a different setting a few weeks ago. I want to congratulate you on how well you did during that interview, and I want to thank you for your service, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Darby. Mr. Barrett.
Good afternoon, Judge.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for your service on many levels.
Thank you, sir.
Would you do us the honor of briefly describing your opponents?
Okay, Mr. Thompson, I've known for a number of years. I don't know exactly what his background is as far as what kind of cases he's handled. Terry Jones is a defense attorney. She appears in front of me quite frequently, or has in the past. Of course, not now since she declared her candidacy. And then I don't know Sandra DiGiacomo other than the name by name, and I know she's a district attorney. So that's their backgrounds, is the limited knowledge I have of their backgrounds.
So you don't have a lot to say about why you're the better candidate? I bet you do.
I think I do, yes. I think based on my experience, I've been a defense attorney, I've been a police officer, I've been a prosecutor. I've seen the legal system from all angles except a defendant. I haven't been a defendant, by the way, but I have seen.
There's time.
there may be. But I think that gives me the big picture, and I can sympathize and understand everybody's concerns. And I think the years of experience I've had, and even the 6 years now as a judge, my goal is every year to be a better judge than I was the year before, and to have better judicial temperament and better understanding of the law, and continue that way. And so I think with my experience that I'm certainly the most qualified and will do the best job.
Thank you very much. Are you done, Mr. Barrett? Mr. Churchill.
I'm going to pass on my questions, but again, like the previous panel people, I want to thank you for your service, both as a judge in the military and especially with this court. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. Byron Brooks.
How you doing, Judge?
I'm good. I see we have Mr. Thompson just came in. So
If we could then, if Mr. Thompson, you will come up here quickly, we can get him in on this question as well. So if we'll just have a quick pause.
I've saved a seat for you, Gary.
Right up front, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you. I can't hardly see without these.
Mr. Thompson, I will just say and disclose that I do know Mr. Thompson professionally as well as Mr. Stevens, and like I said before, I am not, as a moderator, doing any follow-up questions or statements because of that and potential conflicts of interest. We have gone through some panelists. What we will do is we'll ask a question, you'll have 1 minute to respond, and then afterwards you'll have a 30-second closing statement. And so we are with, right now, Mr. Byron Brooks. Mr. Brooks?
As jokes.
Yeah. Good afternoon. My question is going to be rephrased now that Mr. Thompson is here. So this question is specifically for you, Judge Stevens, and then I'll have one for you, Mr. Thompson. And the question is, in terms of the Veterans Court and the things that you've done with Veterans Court, what do you think can be done so that those veterans who are jailed and have to go through the system are more aware of the Veterans Court that's offered to them, as opposed to not understanding that they may have an option in going into your courtroom? And then, Mr. Thompson, what I'm interested in knowing is, if you were elected, what is your vision for Veterans Court, and what would you change, if anything, about that program?
So we'll start with Mr. Stevens.
it's a good question. One of the things that we've done is, as a booking question for anybody that gets booked in at the jail, the question is, are you in the military, or have you ever been in the military? That way, when we get them in arraignments, it's flagged. It comes up as military. So I know that then. Also, we have 2 liaison officers for the Veterans Court down in the jail, who give them a pamphlet that I've given to some of you individuals here. That's given to them right at booking when they first get there, as well as now there's an application if they're interested, because it's a voluntary thing for them to be in Veterans Court. So that application is down there for them to fill out, as well as a VA waiver so we can get the information that we need. So all that's being done there. Plus, the police department has been very good and supportive, and even some of those officers are saying, hey, you might want to consider Veterans Court when they're taking them into custody or taking them to jail. So we do have that procedure in place, and I know district court level is working on that as well. Judge Bell is working on that as well. I work with her some. We have a meeting once a month and talk about
Thank you
these
very
things.
much. I'll have to cut you off. And that is also a strict rule, Mr. Thompson. We don't allow you to finish when your time's up, your time's up. And so if I cut you off, it's not because I don't like you, especially if I'm before you later on, but it's simply because I want to adhere to the rules, and I hope you'll respect that.
That's fine.
So Mr. Thompson.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure.
Specifically for you, Mr. Thompson, the question had to do with the Veterans Court program. So if you became elected, how do you envision the Veterans Court program, or what changes would you or would you not make to this program, and how is it going to work under you?
I believe at the time, right now, looking at the way it's structured, I don't know if I would make any changes. I'm fully supportive of the program, and I really like the idea of this specialty court. And I think it's greatly needed. If there was a way to expand it just to make sure that everyone was included that was eligible, I think, but I don't know if that's not already being done. I really don't see a change at the moment. I'd really have to get in there and work with it, but I'm fully supportive of the program right now.
Thank you. Are you done, Mr. Brooks? Okay. Mr. Andre Haynes.
This question is for the judge. Can you please describe how your timeliness impacts the system and those in it, and your track record?
Well,
judicial efficiency.
I believe that you need to respect everybody in court, whether it's my own staff, prosecutor, public defenders, defense attorneys, witnesses. You got to start your calendars on time. And I don't know if it's my Marine Corps background, but we start on time. And I think it's important because I find attorneys come to my court first because they know I'm going to start on time and I'll get them out of there as well. I think as a general policy as well. And it's just showing respect for everybody. And everybody deserves that I start on time and I'm efficient and we move cases along.
Out of fairness, I'm also going to allow Mr. Thompson to have 1 minute to speak about the importance of judicial efficiency. Mr. Thompson.
Let's talk about timeliness and how timely I was today. I'm like, what a great question, right out of the First of all, I apologize to everybody. I understand I was late. I was working with the Henderson Community Foundation today, and their event went over, so I do apologize for being late. But I think it's very important that you do start your court on time, that you run it efficiently and respectfully. There's a certain amount, people want their time and they want to feel that they're given a fair shake and they're given their time to talk. Generally, when I'm filling in as an alternate judge, I'm looking at that and trying to balance out the court efficiency by letting them make sure that they talk and have their say, but also knowing when to, they've said enough and they've had their time and we got to move on and get other things done. So I believe on starting right on time and making sure that we run it a very efficient court.
Thank you very much. Is that all? Follow-up question? Yes. We're good? Now, to the other Mr. Brooks, Mr. Jason Brooks.
Yeah, thank you. Judge Stevens, Mr. Thompson. Judge Stevens, I think I've heard of your name before. I don't know where it came from, but might have seen you around. Basically, first thing we want to talk about is Veterans Court. Obviously, being a veterans group, this is one of the cornerstones of things that we believe in. There's a lot of veterans out there that need the help. I know you've talked about the program. You talked about some of the expansions that have happened so far just in the past year. There's been a lot of changes. And my brother's question was about the outreach to some of the veterans that get in trouble, going inside they don't know if they're a veteran or not until they get asked. So that's something that you've done, which is just, commend you for that. That's great. Is there any other thing beyond the court right now? Is there anything going out into the community that can actually help veterans that will know this, get this information out there prior to them getting in trouble? Because there's a lot of times that, you don't want them to know about this stuff when they get in trouble. You want to take this out to the community. So the question is going to be for both of you, are you doing anything within the community to spread out the word, so to speak, to all the veterans, in the state to let them know, but obviously within Henderson, just to let them know that there is a program out there for them and that they aren't alone. There's people out there to help them. Is there anything that you take beyond the courtroom for that?
Jason, are you suggesting that people should go commit their crimes in Henderson?
That's what I'm suggesting so far,
Okay.
yes.
If we could start with Mr. Thompson.
The cops don't shoot as quickly out there. So I've heard.
Other than promoting this, making sure that it gets into the newspaper and gets promoted, it's also on the city website, and making sure that people understand. It's hard to get much information out of the courtroom on the specialty programs that are offered throughout either the city of Las Vegas or the city of Henderson or North Las Vegas without someone actually crossing the line. Most people aren't going to do their research to say, where should I be? But I think there has been a good job with the newspapers covering the program and getting the word out. Other than that, just trying to put more things on the website, easier accessible information to make sure that gets out there and through different veterans groups. That probably is a good idea to put it out as well.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens.
Yeah. Some of the things we're doing is I get out and I go to the vet center up in the Anthem, Sun City Anthem, and talk to them, give them presentations, VFWs. I just set up today at American Legion a discussion with them about Veterans Court. So I'll go in and make presentations to them. And actually some of my mentors, they're out there talking about it. We've got a graduation coming up here March 7th. We try to get the media involved when we have graduations. So this one we have 2 World War II vets that are going to come and talk at the graduation, just to add a little more interest and to get some more media involvement in it as well, to get that word out there that it exists. And I think we're getting there. We got a long ways to go. We've created these pamphlets now that describe the Veterans Courts, and we're providing those to individuals. It's at the front in the court when they come in as well. So we're doing a number of things to try to get the word out there. And we appreciate you folks letting us get the word out there as well. So.
Thank you very much. Are you done, Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Okay. I believe Ms. Karen Steelman would like to ask a question.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us here today and taking your time. I know you probably have better things to do, as do we, but that's neither here nor there. Veterans Court seems to be the subject today, so I'm going to stick with that, and I'm going to play devil's advocate for a minute and ask each of you to address the comments that are often made about Veterans Court being a separate set of rules for a separate or special interest group. How could you address that and justify that to people who criticize it?
Mr. Stevens, we'll start with you.
That's a good question. And one of the things, Veterans Court isn't a free ride by any means. Let's say it's domestic battery. They have to do the 26 sessions, domestic battery counseling, all the other requirements or any other charge. They have to do any of the other mandated requirements. Plus, no drugs, no alcohol, random drugs and alcohol testing. They end up doing far more and frequent status checks, far more than anybody would have to do if they chose just to accept the regular court versus Veterans Court. So it's certainly not just a ride for these individuals, a free ride. They've got to want to change their life and get it back on track. Otherwise, the program doesn't work for them. And yeah, I understand the concern, but I think if people came to court and saw what it's really about, they realize that it's very intense. So.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson.
I was thinking about that as well, the perception that the veterans are getting something more than the general public. It's also with, almost all your specialty courts, you have to qualify, there's got to be some qualifier to get in that program. And all of the programs have such heavy requirements. I mean, you really got to stay within the guidelines, as Judge Stevens was saying, to be able to get the counseling or get the help that you need. And so it is an intense program, and I think it's needed. Certainly we could expand it to other areas, and I think the fund's limited. That's the big issue. If you can raise the money to expand either drug or alcohol counseling to a greater number of people or mental health issues, that would be great, but there is a limitation on what is actually funded by the court. And I still think this is a great court, and the qualifiers there separated out, that it's not, it's not a free ride.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Are you done, Mr. Brooks?
That was her question.
Oh, excuse me, Ms. Steelman. You were telling me time is up, and so I was looking at you.
Yes, I'm done, thank you.
Okay, now we'll do some follow-up questions. We do have some time. Ms. Howard has said she wanted to do a follow-up question along with Mr. Barrett.
Obviously not.
My question is actually for both of you. Karen brought up a good point. Some people feel that these programs are pointless. What I would like to know is, do you know how the funding comes about for all the different specialty courts and how it gets divided up? And how much is the actual Veterans Court costing the state taxpayers of Nevada?
I'm sorry, Mr. Sanson interrupted. Mr. Thompson, if you could start with this one.
I actually, not being involved in the funding, I don't know how this is funded. Other programs, I understand, are different grants allowed through the state. I know the youth offender program in Las Vegas, a lot of things are volunteered. The judge actually goes out and gets people to donate time and money and services for the kids that need those things. And so whatever is needed, if there is a state supplement for a grant for the program, that's great. But if there are other things that can be promoted as a benefit to the court, I would go out and try to raise the funds through the community and donations.
Mr. Stevens.
Thank you. We use the Veterans Administration for most of our funding, or for most of the counseling and those type things, to the extent possible. We really run on a shoestring budget as far as the Veterans Court. Initially, the public defender wasn't making any money, just volunteering his time. He's also a veteran, as well as the prosecutor, and most all of our staff and they are veterans. But so we really do it on very little money. We do have a 501(c), a nonprofit to help cover some of the costs now that we're trying to utilize. We rely on some donations as well, and it does cost the individual if they can afford the program. There is cost associated with being in the program, some of which can't come up with that money. But even like this alcohol monitoring device, they've allowed us 1,000 free days of doing that for the Veterans Court as well. So
Thank you very much.
Okay, I would just like to follow that up with, for both of you, every traffic ticket that's issued in the state of Nevada has a $7 surcharge on it, or a tax or a fee that goes to the Supreme Court for the specialty courts, and the Supreme Court then doles out those grants. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you very much. I believe Mr. Barrick had a question.
Yes. Judge Stevens, you mentioned that when individuals are booked into Henderson jail, they're asked if they're a veteran or if they are in the military or have ever served in the military. And of course, there's some people that won't self-identify. We understand that's a problem. Then you mentioned there's an application form for the court. And then the third thing that caught my ear was that VA waiver form. It's probably a 4142, isn't it? That's that form that they sign to get their VA records?
correct, so that we can follow up if they want to be in the program, how they're progressing. And
Right. So my question to you is more mechanical. What kind of turnaround time, or if you're aware of, are you getting from the VA when you submit that form on behalf of a veteran?
You know, we have 2 VA representatives, outreach coordinators that come to court every Thursday. Pete is one of them, and Jack Green is the other, and they come to court. We get that information to them ahead of time in hopes that they'll find out whether they qualify, what their status is, what their service was, and make sure that they're giving us the right information on those forms. But yeah, Pete and Jack get that information to us, and we have a meeting an hour before court starts where we all discuss how the individuals are going and whether they're qualified.
But again, I was just kind of curious, when a individual submits that form, what kind of turnaround time are you getting from the VA? How long is it taking you to get their records?
If they're in custody, they bring a computer to the courtroom and they can look up stuff right then if they have to. Hopefully they do it ahead of time because there's some delay and the court drags on if we have to do too much of that. But they can get that information ahead of time and give that to us.
So you have computer access to those records?
Correct. We hook them up right there in court as well as in our meeting room.
Thank you.
Great. Mr. Thompson, did you want to comment on that at all?
No.
Okay. We have 2 more, and because of time constraints, I think we'll end with these 2. We have Mr. Byron Brooks and Georgia Sott that wanted to do follow-up questions.
Yes, thank you, Steve. I just wanted to pick your brains a little bit about constitutional interpretation. There are different theories, of course. One is that it's a living, breathing document. The other being that it's strict construction. It's a textualist argument. You read the text, you interpret it literally. Let me pose a hypothetical to you. It will juxtapose Article 6 versus the 10th Amendment. The city of Henderson has just passed an ordinance saying that semi-assault style rifles are banned and that the magazine limit can be no more than 10 rounds per magazine. And there is a CCW permit that's issued by the state of Nevada also. An individual is arrested. There's also a city ordinance that says if you're in a city park in Henderson, you cannot have your weapon even though you have a CCW permit. This individual is there, he has a CCW permit, he has a weapon. It comes before you. How would you interpret the Constitution vis-a-vis Article 6 versus the 10th Amendment? State of Nevada, CCW permits are legal versus the Henderson City Ordinance, which says it's illegal to have a weapon with a CCW permit in a city park.
We'll start with Mr. Thompson. By the way, for both of you, good luck with 1 minute on this one.
All right, well, I think you're going to have to look at it as and I would look at it as a living, breathing document. I really think that you look at our Constitution as technology and times change. We didn't have all the things that the city, in this hypothetical, wrote an ordinance on and banned were not in existence when you were looking at, the right to bear arms and what kind of things were available at that time. So I think you have to look at it as a living, breathing document as technology has changed, where our rules and our limitations are going to have to change to meet our safety of our public. And I think I would have to interpret it and go with the public safety, and that the technology has changed, and we're going to have to enforce the ordinance.
Mr. Stevens.
I think that you have to look long and hard at the municipal ordinance as to whether it should be upheld or not, quite frankly. So I think you have to look at that. I'd have to read the verbiage that they put in there, but it's certainly a concern anytime municipal ordinance contradicts. I think, for one thing, the Second Amendment as well. But I think you have to look long and hard at that and maybe make the determination that the ordinance isn't valid.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Byron Brooks, please.
This question is really more for Mr. Thompson, only because you're the only one there besides Mr. Stevens, the others aren't here. Sure. So I've had the privilege of being here all day and listening to candidates for different seats discuss why they wanted to be elected, and most all of them felt like they were fixing something. That's why they wanted to be elected. There was something that needed to be changed, and they knew how to do it. So what I'm asking is, for you, what is it that you see that needs to be changed, or what's the purpose for you running so that you can become elected?
Well, there isn't a specific, I don't look at what has happened in the past or how the court is run right now as broken, and I'm going to come in, charge in, and change everything. My motivation to be in this position is really come from that I'm born and raised here, and I absolutely love the city of Henderson. One of the things I've wanted to do for a long time has been to serve as a judge, and it's I know Mr. Stevens knows this from 6 years ago. If I wasn't in such a position that I was at the time, we would have had this debate 6 years ago. And so I've been an alternate judge in the city of Las Vegas. I do enjoy the work. I want to serve the city. I think I can do a great job at it, and really that's my motivation. And I also look at it as not being a 9-to-5 job. I think you're part of the community, and whether it's serving in the courtroom or being out in the public, I think you're there to better the city all the way around, and that's why I'm on.
Thank you very much. Now, out of fairness, even though it was directed to Mr. Thompson, if Mr. Stevens would like to comment on the question, you certainly have that right.
Well, I think I really answered the question, I think, previously about I think my experience from being defense attorney, prosecutor, police officer, and now a judge for 6 years makes me the best person for the job, and that's why I'm seeking re-election.
Thank you. Now we have our closing statements. 30 seconds is the time limit, and that will be strictly adhered to. Mr. Thompson, if you could start.
Why? Almost felt like I just gave my closing sentence. If you don't know me, you can find out more about me. It's real easy. But again, I've been a part of the Las Vegas community and Henderson community for a long time, and I've spent almost all my time elementary, junior high school, and then going to college at UNLV. I absolutely do love the community and look forward to serving it for many years to come. So, thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Stevens.
Well, I really want the opportunity to continue on with the Veterans Court and my court in general, but specifically the Veterans Court. I think we've got a unique thing going here. We're striving to be the model Veterans Court, at least in the state of Nevada. And each month goes by, we make it better. And I think I become a better judge each month that goes by as well. And hope to have that opportunity and appreciate any support.
Thank you very much. This concludes our panel discussion for Henderson Municipal Court Judge Department 1. I would like to thank very much the candidates for being here, as well as the panelists and those that made this possible. So thank you very much.